Everyone's very enthusiastic to be here this morning, which is great to see. So welcome everyone to YJOC August 14th, National Creamsicle Day. And as I look for these holidays, I go down rabbit holes learning great trivia. So today I went down the rabbit hole of who invented the popsicle in 1905. Does anyone know? In San Francisco, 11-year-old Frank Epperson went out to play, mixed up some soda powder with water with a wooden stick to drink it, and alas, adventure called. So off he went to play, left his cup outside overnight, went out there the next day and found, lo and behold, it had frozen solid. So he ran it under hot water, got his drink on a stick out and found out that it was pretty darn good. So he became the neighborhood entrepreneur, selling what he named Epsicles after himself, Epperson Epsicle, in his neighborhood. So that's who invented the popsicle. Fast forward 18 years later in 1923, he decided, you know what, that idea I had when I was 11 was a pretty darn good idea. So I'm going to get a patent. And he listened to his children at that time. They said, the name stinks, Dad, so why don't you call it Popsicle? And thus we have popsicles today. So National Creamsicle Day. I would like, as we go around, to introduce ourselves today, to tell us your name, your role, and your favorite frozen treat. Let's start over here with Judge Dolahanty.
Morning, I'm Darren Dolahanty, Senior Judge, Free Agent. Frozen. I've been sold on these. I can't think of the name of them though, but there's a Greek yogurt bar. Yasso bars. Yeah. 99 calories for a bar. So that's 99 calories well spent.
Good morning, Doug Hunsinger. I'm the Executive Director of the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute, and it's a Schwann's ice cream cone. No other brand, has to be Schwann's.
Hey, good morning, Catherine Pulley, Executive Director of Indiana Office of Court Services, and I don't eat them often, but Snickers ice cream bars are my favorite.
Good morning, everyone. Matt Alsma, not a free agent, Indiana University. Glad to be here. And I grew up in a dairy farm in Wisconsin, and the Schwann's truck would come to the farm, and you'd get popsicles that way. So anything that they delivered. So second the Schwann's.
That's hard. Schwann's is good. Tracy Fitz, IPAC. And I also grew up with the Schwann's truck in the neighborhood. So I do love all Schwann's, including the orange push-up. But my favorite frozen treat is coffee ice cream.
Good morning, Nancy Weaver, Director of Youth Justice Initiatives, the Indiana Office of Court Services, Fudgesicles.
Waylon James, Department of Child Services. I would have to say Schwann's too. I like the Thin Mint ice cream bars.
Amy Richardson, Magistrate in Huntington County, and I like a good ice cream sandwich.
Ryan King, Ripley Circuit Court, probably banana milkshake, but it sounds like I need to buy stock.
Good morning, Sarah Sailors, Director for Division of Mental Health and Addiction. I'm going to go with sherbet ice cream.
And they all sound good. Terry Decker, Executive Director for Division of Youth Services with Department of Correction. I'm going to say, because I just had it at Steak and Shake, the new Dreamsicle Freeze. It's worth it.
Nicole Phillips, Bartholomew County Probation, and I grew up with the Schwann's truck as well. The golden nuggets are pretty good. They're like a frozen Snickers, but I also like the Yasso ice cream sandwiches.
Good morning. I'm Liz Hodak with the Indiana Public Defender Council. Honestly, I really do love a creamsicle. They're delicious.
Stephen Balco, Department of Education. I think my favorite's a banana split.
Mark Fairchild, Commission on Improving the Status of Children. I'm going to have to do a twofer. If it's from the truck, I was always a sucker for the strawberry shortcake bars. But on my own, just good old-fashioned chocolate malt.
Leslie Dunn, Indiana Office of Court Services. Director of Children and Families Division, and I am with Judge Delahunty that I love Yasso. The Yasso bites that are covered in chocolate, 35 calories for two. They're wonderful.
There's a seat here, excuse me, by Mark, over there by Steve Balco.
Yeah, nobody wants to sit by Steve, so I can take a seat.
And for the two judges joining us, so we are going around the room introducing ourselves by name, role, and favorite frozen treat because it is National Creamsicle Day.
So. Carolyn Foley, Allen Superior Court. It's got to be a contact bar.
All right.
Faith Graham, Tippecanoe County. Gosh, just anything. Ice cream is my nemesis. Anything, ice cream.
And I'm Dana Kenworthy, Court of Appeals, and I'm going to go with Ben and Jerry's Cherry Garcia in particular. All right, we're going to start with approval of minutes. So we have two sets to approve. First of all, from February 13th, since we didn't have a quorum last meeting, we do today. Love this attendance level today. And June 12th. Do we have any edits for the minutes, either set? Not, do we have a motion to approve the February 13th minutes?
I'd so move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And do I have a motion to approve the June 2nd, or excuse me, June 12th minutes?
I'll move.
Thank you, Magistrate Foley. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Judge Graham. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right. We've included in your packet this month the electronic communication attendance policy. So I want to draw your attention to number 3 on that at least 50% of members must be physically present at a meeting, and a member may not attend more than 50% of the meetings in a calendar year by means of electronic communication unless there are certain circumstances listed there. And if you need to attend by electronic communication, you must request authorization at least 72 hours before the meeting so that we can ensure that we have a quorum for the meeting. The chair does have discretion to approve participation requests submitted less than 72 hours if there is an emergency. We will be looking at this policy between now and the next meeting so that we ensure everything is in order as we move to electronic attendance of some of our work groups. And I will remind everyone on work groups that we can have no more than one member of the full YJOC on that work group without triggering the live stream requirement. So we want to keep membership on those work groups under one full member. If there are others on the group that want to attend and participate in those work group meetings, you can certainly attend and participate as a guest, but you wouldn't be a full member of those groups. Any questions about the electronic communication policy? All right. At the last meeting, Magistrate Foley had a wonderful suggestion that we reach out to our friends at our public libraries and see if there's room for partnership with our local libraries. So to brainstorm that, one of my clerks happens to be a former employee of the state library. And so she said, I know some people over there. So she set up a meeting with 3 folks. I met with them and they were really enthusiastic, saying public libraries are always looking for additional programming to help families. They knew of at least one county. They thought Scott, they weren't certain of that, but they thought Scott County had received some grant funding a few years ago to set up a telehealth room for folks to utilize, folks who don't have either internet access or equipment access. So they were able to set aside space and equipment for people to get services within the space of their libraries. So that conversation has started. I believe, Doug, that they reached out to you at CJI as well. Is that correct? So the idea is planted and that spark has started. My suggestion going forward will be that this be delegated to the behavioral health work group since they are looking at telehealth options. I did note that the libraries will need to partner with justice system teams, so they can't come independently and seek grant funding. But if they're partnered up with justice system teams, that may be a good option for there's very rural counties that have population that don't have access for telehealth. So thank you, Magistrate Foley, for sparking that idea, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Glad to hear that it's working out.
Any additional thoughts on that project, on that idea? All right, then we will move right along to Mark's report from the Commission on Improving the Status of Children and legislative update.
And I know everybody's saying like, but we're out of legislative session. Why do we have a legislative update again? We thought we were done with Mark. So it is time though to start the planning for the next legislative session already. So August is the preseason where we've got to start getting language that we're thinking about up front of the right folks and get that adopted in there. So under the Children's Commission, we do have one potential one that will get presented at the commission meeting next Wednesday that I'm sure some in this room will be interested in looking at the rights of children in detention facilities to have family access. So looking at those in-person visits, as well as phone and what barriers we can look at removing, what the standing practice can be. So they vetted that through all of the stakeholders, which is quite a few. And we'll be looking at getting that recommendation presented the next one. It has a few more sets of eyes to go through, so I'm not going to sit there and read through the whole thing. But if you're interested in that or would want to be part of where that product ends up going, because it would still be going through a legislative process, which will have its own set of changes and amendments and everything else to it. Let us know, because as always with anything that goes that path, we want to have as many of the players involved as possible. So, but that'll be on next Wednesday's one. In that, other things going on with the Children's Commission. Of course, we're still looking at integrating all the YGOC stuff under House Bill 1403. We've got kind of new flow charts as far as how recommendations will move through, where things go through the Children's Commission, where they remain with YGOC, all those pieces. So we'll be presenting those in the near future. We're definitely not looking at any processes changing, just making sure that we have our processes properly reflected and written down. So we're holding ourselves accountable as we build those things out. We'll also be having one other item at the Children's Commission meeting next week related to chronic absenteeism. This will be a very simple position statement, but one that I know a lot of people, again, at this table and your entities have been a part of. Noting that chronic absenteeism is a multi-systemic, multi-agency issue and requires a coordinated response as such. That's really, it seems like a pretty basic statement, but it's meant to do a couple of things. Really level set that we're all on the same team here for one, because we don't want it to be like a juvenile justice issue solely. It's not a schools issue solely. It's an indicator of a lot of other things also. So the social services community coming into that and just doing a level set on that. The end goal is we'll be working with DOE into the future and saying what is going to be the North Star number that we're trying to get to for reducing chronic absenteeism. So there will be that metric coming in, but this will be that starting point of that discussion. Again, just having a good level where we're all committed to working together from all the different angles that issue entails. So there'll be another one that we'll be presenting at that next meeting coming up on Wednesday there. Beyond that, again, for looking at that flow and organization piece, hopefully in one of the next couple of YGOC meetings, we can get that lined out a little bit. So where does it involve the infrastructure of the system? Where does this group have its own independent pathways to move things forward so we're not getting in each other's way? So any thoughts you have on that between now and then, please send them my way, and we want to make sure we get all of that integrated.
Questions for Mark?
How long until the metric gets set, do you think?
Yeah, crystal ball. We're looking at that happening hopefully by the end of this year. We're hoping for actually in the fall still. Because I think that is important. If we're trying to pull everybody together, we got to pull them all together around something. So we want those two things to coincide pretty closely with each other. So, but I can say that's very much underway. It's more about deciding what the metric will be that we all can agree to and look at together. But I think we're getting pretty close on that.
Thank you.
Other questions or discussion regarding Children's Commission? All right, thank you, Mark. Next up, we will have a presentation from Sarah on our Children with High Acuity Needs project.
All right. So I wanted to provide kind of a comprehensive overview of this project that's been in the works now for a couple of years. I've had the honor of serving on what we call, because acronyms are great in state government, so CHAMP, Children with High Acuity Needs Project, for the last couple of years. So in my former role with the Department of Child Services and now in my role with DMHA, I have been honored to be able to stay on the project and be a part of it this entire time. So it is really came out of a grassroots effort, I think, to really figure out systemically what's happening, but also think about real-time like solutions that we could do with individual kids while we build out systemic changes. So today I'm hoping to give you guys an idea of kind of the work groups and the work streams that have been ongoing. Talk to you a little bit about a fictitious youth that we created to help ground us in this work. Give you the overviews of the work streams and then current status of where we're at and what our next steps are. Okay, a lot of information on this slide. I do believe I sent them and you should have them electronically so that you can reference back to them. But when we began this project, we really pulled together like DOC, DOE, FSSA. And when you think about FSSA, there's lots of little divisions within FSSA and then DCS. I believe initially we were seeing in DCS a lot of children in our county offices, right? And having a really challenging time finding appropriate treatment for them or appropriate placements in our communities. And so really in an effort to bring people together to really problem solve quickly, we started what we call our rapid response teams. And we'll talk more about that as the presentation goes on. But we decided then it was more than just solving one kid at a time, right? And so we needed to think more strategically and about the whole system. So in order to do that, we felt like we needed a North Star objective and really what was going to guide us. And so we created the North Star objective that you see there. We then began having lots of conversations with different stakeholders, both internally to state government and externally. And we identified 35 improvement opportunities to really begin shifting the system. I think some of the challenges with that is you can't do everything, right? And these are large systems that take a long time to change. And so we narrowed that down and began doing our work to really think through what that could look like in a way that was more strategic. So after the work groups were developed and we decided to really think about the 4 core programs that we wanted to work on, we we have a CHAMP work group that decided these were the 4 areas, but we did present that to leadership within all of the state agencies that we were talking about. And so at that time, with the state leadership feedback, we began looking at intensive foster care and respite care. So that was one work group or work stream. We had the gatekeeper review process, and that actually has now been implemented and will continue, I'll give you more details on each of these work streams as we go. But we're continuing to gather data and really review that pilot program that's happening. The Cross-Agency Navigator Program, that's actually new and expected to launch in the next few weeks. And then the newest work stream really is the Child Mental Health Wraparound, CMHW, you might know it by, and then the Children's Mental Health Initiative or CMHI program, and really reviewing that program to better understand, is it meeting the needs of our children as we see them today in Indiana? That program, CMHW, CMHI, really began over around 20 years ago in the state of Indiana, and it's been the same the entire time. And as you know, things have changed, right? Children's needs have changed, and we really haven't looked at whether or not that program is continuing to meet the needs, or we need to evolve a little bit. So that work is going on right now. And then I think one of the things you'll see down at the bottom of the slide, the rapid response team, you guys have probably heard of that. So all of these core work streams are happening alongside that kind of grassroots initial project that started all of this, which is the rapid response. We call it the rapid response team. I think it's a little bit confusing maybe to some of our caseworkers who engage in this project. Typically, this is driven by child welfare FCMs who need support to better understand where the gaps are. Why are we not, for example, you might have a youth who's involved in child welfare, but also has developmentally disabled diagnosis, and BEADS isn't involved yet. We maybe haven't done the application for whatever reason. There's two complex systems that aren't necessarily working well together. So the rapid response was really designed to bring people together quickly to talk through the treatment needs of the youth, the challenges that are faced. I think caseworkers hear rapid response and they believe we're going to be able to find them a residential bed very quickly or a foster home very quickly. And that is just not the case, right? Like, we don't have magic beds available for them, but it really is a place where I hope that caseworkers can feel supported, that we're all coming together to problem solve and try to fix things a little bit quicker so that there's not so many delays. A great example of this was this week. We staffed a youth who was had been in an acute psychiatric hospital. He was having challenges in that hospital, had overstayed his placement there. I think the Department of Child Services thought that he had a referral had been made to the state psychiatric hospital, and it had not. Right. And not until they asked for this rapid response was there actually a conversation that was like, we don't have a referral on this youth to even look to see if he is appropriate for a psychiatric hospital stay. Unfortunately, the youth was ended up being detained over the weekend because he had acted out in the acute hospital setting, which he had overstayed, and they were unable to meet his needs at that point. So he ended up in detention in Marion County. He's not a Marion County youth, but he had been in acute hospital here. So he ended up in detention. We responded with the rapid response, figured out that we needed the referral. We have open beds at our NDI State Psychiatric Hospital in Indianapolis, and we were able to staff him, get the referral, and make the placement the very next day into our psychiatric hospital, which is where he should have been, weeks ago. But not know, the two systems didn't necessarily know, but we don't have a database where we can see into those things very easily. And so it takes pulling all these key players together to understand where those gaps are. So unfortunately, he ended up with some new charges, but we do have him safely in the hospital and hoping to get things resolved for him so that he can then return to his home with his family, where his reunification plan is back home and where his mother wants him and all of those great things. So that's a really good example of, we ended up quickly finding a bed and making that happen, but it was because we pulled together and kind of did that response. And so we are hoping, you'll see throughout the slides, we're hoping to expand that opportunity to our juvenile justice population and make sure that our probation officers know about our ability to do this. And Terry and I will be speaking next month at the Probation Officers Conference in French Lick. So we'll be sharing these opportunities with them moving forward. Okay, so we talked a little bit about our fictitious young man, Jack. And so we thought really to ground us in the work that we're doing, it was great to create this young man to really help share a typical challenge that we're faced with in Indiana. So Jack is 14 years old. He has high acuity needs. He requires specialized care and supports with his educational needs. He's diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, severe depression, and suicidal ideation. At this point, he lives with his biological family, but his parents are under a lot of stress, and he's actually witnessed some physical abuse between them and clearly some mental health issues happening with his parents also. As Jack enters high school, there's been an escalation in his behaviors, including recent physical assaults of his younger siblings, and then multiple suicide attempts at home. His parents are doing their very best, but they're struggling to provide the care and ensure the safety not only of Jack, but of his siblings. And I think most of us around this room probably recognize Jack and his story. And I think it's very similar to a lot of the youth that we see in our systems that we all represent. This next slide, if I can get it there, maybe. There we go. Okay, so this actually depicts Jack's journey prior to any improvement projects that we've done. So this is what Jack experienced. And then I'll talk a little bit in the next slide about where with our improvement opportunities where we think we could have intervened quicker. So Jack has an individual education program or an IEP. He has a history of multiple suspensions, resulting in him receiving homebound instruction. This change puts additional stress on Jack's parents as they have to balance both his needs and their work needs. So Jack ends up having to go into kinship care with his grandmother, but then had to quickly move out of kinship care into residential care because his grandmother couldn't meet his needs either. Jack then had multiple suicide attempts. He was sent to an emergency department before being admitted to our state psychiatric hospital. Jack's journey ends with him being waitlisted for in-state and out-of-state residential care. Again, I think this is very typical of the experience for a lot of our families. And some of the challenges that they face every day. This next slide. So this next slide shows Jack's journey and how we actually think it can be improved via all of our different work streams that we're implementing. So we think that there's critical junctures where Jack's path could really be improved. And we think that if we can infuse some of these changes and these supports, we might be able to help Jack remain in his home and in his community without having to access congregate care. All right, I'm going to take a little bit deeper dive into each of our different work streams so that you can better understand where current state and where they're at. So the CMHW, CMHI program, and this is really just a review at this point. With the ultimate goal is trying to improve the wraparound services for children and families across the continuum of care. So regardless of diagnosis, of insurance or agency involvement, right? Like, so this should be even more upstream, thinking about kids prior to system involvement, hoping that these programs can really be utilized to prevent maybe involvement in the Department of Child Services or preventing juvenile justice behaviors. To better understand our current service array, we have been holding stakeholder engagements, discussions. We're really reviewing data from both the CMHW and the CMHI programs, but we're also doing a fiscal analysis of these programs. So it's important to point out that the W is actually a Medicaid program. And so that is for Medicaid eligible children. But there are some children who are excluded, even if they have Medicaid, based on their diagnosis. So some children are not eligible to participate in the wraparound, even if they have Medicaid. Therefore, the CMHI program was created to try to fill the gaps for children who either are underinsured, don't have Medicaid, or their private insurance doesn't meet the needs of their mental health services. So the I was created for that. The I has also seen a large increase in the number of children who are Medicaid eligible, who are on Medicaid, but are excluded due to their diagnosis. And so that has been very interesting. So for example, an autism diagnosis excludes you from the W program, but we've seen a large increase in the I population. And the important thing to note about that is the W is federal, right? So you have Medicaid reimbursement on that. The I is all state dollars, and there is no Medicaid reimbursement. The Department of Child Services funds the I out of all state dollars. So we think that there is a fiscal opportunity within also helping to meet the needs of the children who are excluded from our W program, and that there might be either continuing with the model that we have with the W and changing some things about it, or maybe we need something different in Indiana. We don't know. And so I think that's what we're open to. So lots going on with that project, looking at the data. In terms of next steps for this program, we want to finish compiling all the data, look at our fiscal analysis, and then we'll be submitting that for review for our agency heads to look at opportunities for next steps. Any questions on the W or I? No? Okay. Cross-agency navigator. As I said, this is not being implemented yet, but we are very, very close. So this program, I think, as you know, our system is complicated, right? Regardless of whether you're involved in just one silo of that system. But when you become a youth who gets involved in multiple systems, it is very challenging for families to figure out how to navigate that. It's also challenging for our frontline providers to understand who's doing what, when things are happening, and who's taking the lead on things to make sure that all referrals, we're not working against each other. We're kind of all swimming in the same direction. Kids can have multiple treatment plans, right, that maybe don't align and they're actually working against each other. And so while each, program kind of creates their own and has their own requirements, are we coming to the table to really understand what each team is doing and who is involved? And I think so many times, especially in my experience as a family case manager, so many times you'll find out you've been working with a family for months, right? And all of a sudden you find out there's another system that's involved that you didn't even know was involved, right? And it's not until accidentally someone says something that you figure that out. Again, we don't have integrated systems where we're able to, easily see that a youth who is involved in the juvenile justice system or the DCS system also has bead services happening at the same time. It's just we don't have that ability. And so the lack of alignment really hinders the integration of priorities, right? And really the alignment of how we move forward. So we think that the navigator will be someone who is really a thread that can tie all of these systems together and help coordinate and organize that. I'm hopeful, right, that we're gonna see some great communication come up through this. Sometimes I think this just seems simple, right? Like we all get around the table and we just have conversations, but it's much more complicated than that. And so we've designed these two pilots, two separate service pilots. So one is what we're thinking as an upstream approach, right? So this is pre-crisis track, where a navigator will partner with we have a school district that is interested in being part of this pilot. And so we are thinking about kids who are at risk of expulsion, just like Jack, right? So when a child has to go on homebound, that can really set a family into a downward spiral, because trying to provide appropriate supervision for a child all day while you are also needing to work and earn an income to be able to feed your family and keep a roof over your head becomes really, really difficult. And so if we can get upstream and prevent kids from being expelled, right? Keeping them in school, making sure they have the right services in place. We think that that might be an opportunity to prevent kids from getting into the system deeper. So that's our first pilot that we are doing. And our second pilot, so the other track that we're doing is more downstream, so post-crisis. So we are partnering with NDI, which is our Indianapolis-based children's psychiatric hospital, where we are going to have a navigator who's helping when kids are ready to be released and back into the community, to make sure, have all of the referrals been done? Are all of the services ready to go, so that when a child returns back home or to their place where they're being cared for in the community, we don't have that 30, 60-day delay in services where we see the child really plummet quickly after they've been stabilized. So that the second pilot program per se is post-crisis. And so we have hired 2 navigators to start this pilot program, and they're in the process of being oriented to all of this. And we will be establishing some standard operating procedures and some policies, and all of that work is happening behind the scenes right now. but we should be kicking off, I would say in the next week or two, that they will be fully onboarded and ready to begin these pilot programs. Our intensive foster care and respite care program. So this work stream really found that due to the intensive needs of our kids, right, and the level of care that they needed in their homes and that children were requiring, foster parents were feeling, or caregivers were feeling ill-equipped to be able to manage their needs and maintain them in those homes. We also felt like that was a barrier for foster parents or kinship caregivers to be willing to accept youth into their home, because there just weren't a lot of supports designed to specifically help them meet the needs of that unique child, right? And so this program is providing that specialized training for our caregivers, whether that's foster caregivers or kinship caregivers, and also open to biological caregivers, right? If we can get kids back home quickly and maybe help support families a little bit differently. It also offers some respite care, knowing that the kids who are involved in intensive foster care have very high needs, which can be very draining for our caregivers. So this embedded into this program provides opportunities for our caregivers to have some respite and for kids to be able to stay for a day or two somewhere else to give caregivers that opportunity. Really, the goal is to maintain kids in a home-like setting and to help, if possible, get them to permanency a little bit quicker. This is a DCS program, and it is a contracted program, and there's over 400 kids who have been served in this program so far. The program began in November, and we continue to watch the data and kind of, as you know, not every program is designed perfectly from the outset, but in historically in state government, when we pilot things, we don't really pilot them, right? We launch them and we never look at them again. We are looking at this program, we're watching it, we're tweaking with it as we see necessary. I believe that DCS was able to enter into contracts with at least 2 providers in every county in the state. And that map to the right kind of shows, it's a heat map of where the concentrated, of course, most of your providers are in central Indiana and in that donut area. Our gatekeeper process. So this is our last core work stream I'm going to talk to you about. But state hospitalization is always the last thing you would want for a child, but sometimes that is the option that is necessary. And so what we had found with the gatekeeper process in its original state was that the admission process is difficult, the discharge process is difficult, and so it could take a very long time, the whole process, right, to get an application through the system could take months. And kids just don't have months, right? And so we wanted to find a way to better support the gatekeepers with the resources that they needed to engage our youth with their treatment plans and to provide the timely services. So we piloted a program with 8 CMHCs. So if you did not know, the CMHCs, there's 24 across the state of Indiana. They hold the contracts for the gatekeeper process. The gatekeeper process is a statutory requirement, and the gatekeeper is the only one who can make the referral to state hospitalization. So that process is contracted with the CMHCs. we are in, obviously, as you know, we're in a interesting time when 8 of our CMHCs are transitioning into the CCBHC model. So we piloted the new gatekeeper process with this 8 the CCBHCs. And so that has been up and running, and really, through this process, right, and this like different contract that we're doing with them, we're requiring more frequent check-ins with the youth. We're requiring treatment teams to begin discharge planning from the time the youth enters the hospital. So I think in that really, like that top little thing, you'll see that like a gatekeeper is now required to be on site and see that child 7 days after admission, right? That wasn't required before, and now they're required to see that youth every 30 days so that we can ensure that the right conversations are happening, that the gatekeeper knows the youth's trajectory in terms of discharge planning, and that we can make sure that all things are in place so that the child can exit state hospitalization quickly. We've identified quality and financial incentives and built that into our contract. We're also funding the gatekeeper with half an FTE, which is different than we've done before. So it's a little bit of an incentive for our CCBHCs, right, to be able to provide high quality gatekeeping. We're tying payments to the gatekeepers, and so there's paybacks if they don't meet certain metrics, and we've never done that before. So this is very different for our CMHCs and very different for DMHA. But again, watching and seeing how that goes before we go with a full new process for all of the gatekeepers. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I talked a little bit about the rapid response team. Again, this team is staffed by multi-state agencies, and we've targeted, you know, like case management, trying to support children who need different services that they're getting, and figuring out what those delays are and how we might be able to help provide support to those frontline workers. We've staffed over 55 children. It's probably 60-ish by now. Often the kids are DCS involved. Often they are overstaying their acute hospital stays. Often they're in detention, needing to come out and ending up in county offices with the Department of Child Services. So again, I think we are looking at potentially tweaking this program a little bit. As I said, right, it's important that we don't just pilot something and keep it stagnant. We need to be open to adjusting with what we're seeing. So we're looking at the data. How old are the kids that we're staffing? Is there a typical gender that's usually involved in these staffings? Are there certain diagnosis that these kids might have that is trending in certain ways? So watching all of that. But again, I think even just maybe change the name for some of you who are have heard of the ECHO project, right? Like pulling people together quickly to think about clinical solutions. That's really what this is. It's not a magic bed most of the time, right? It worked out really well on Monday that we happened to have beds open at NDI, and that was a great opportunity to get the young man out of detention and into the psychiatric hospital where he needed to be. But doesn't always work like that. Okay, so another project that we've started to engage in, this is very, very new work for us, this is in partnership with Doug and his team, and we're trying to engage in better understanding the juvenile justice grants and how we might be able to support local communities in actually being able to use those funds to implement programs into their counties. And so we talked about like piloting this. Again, piloting is our magic word, but testing it out, right? Like we want to test it out. But the goal is really to help provide flexible, locally driven approaches to divert youth from the juvenile justice system. And so this is our first pillar that I think really focuses on juvenile justice alone. And so this is an opportunity for us to do some things with our behavioral health work group, with CJI, and really trying to figure out how can we help small rural counties access these funds so that we can get the right EBPs, evidence-based programs infused into their communities. How can we really move the needle on the access to the funds that exist? I know we've kind of taken a little pause on this as there's some discussion happening behind the scenes with CJI and Judge Kenworthy on how we might do this work. So we're anxiously awaiting to support and figure out next steps with that. But that is on our radar and something we would love to engage in and figure out how to be part of the solution. And then the last, I just want to provide a quick update. So I feel like we have made a lot of progress in all of our work streams, right? Since we launched the program. I'm excited about being able to continue to be a part of all of these great opportunities. I think, as I said in the beginning, we identified 35 areas of opportunity. So we have lots more to do. I think, you know, maybe we will continue this work for a long time. But I think the next big step for us is the cross-agency navigator and launching that in the next couple of weeks. So please be aware of that happening, especially if you have youth you're involved in who are in placement at NDI. We are really trying to help bridge the gaps as kids exit that psychiatric care and back into their communities. With that, I'll answer any questions. I know it's a lot of information. Maybe I should go back to the slide so it's not just, there we go. Any questions? Yeah.
Thanks so much for that overview. Such important work. So with the pilot program that you're thinking about for diversion, so important,
Okay.
right? And it's huge. And I think one of the difficulties that I've heard from counties over the years is that many of the programs are funded by DCS when youth is not on probation, can't provide those services. So I think to really think about how to use some flex funds for sustainability, great to have the pilot program, but for long term, how to fund that for youth that are diverted, not on probation at all, super important.
Okay.
So is that the topic?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think too, even thinking about funding so upstream, right? So they don't ever have that touch with probation, right? But yes.
So you're thinking through all of that, the funding side. And
Yes, and we have talked to, had a couple of conversations with some local judges to identify like, what do they see as, you know, needs in their communities and where are the gaps? We've had some conversations with our community, like Judge Graham's, Tippecanoe, and because they have access some funds. And so we've talked to them like, what are you doing with these funds? How is it working? What, you know, so yes, we are thinking through that. Yes.
So I've got a few. First, I'll piggyback off Dr. Alsma's question, and that is the age-old who's paying question. So I think for judges, that's particularly difficult to figure out or understand the state level funding streams and how they fit together. So I hear cross-agency navigator, and I wonder if there's a financial piece to that as well, to help courts, families, probation, treatment, DCS case managers figure out where to access the funding and where those funding gaps exist.
Yes, so great point, right? And I do think that so DMHA is currently funding those navigator positions, right? And obviously that may or may not be future state, right? But we are looking at other funding sources and what does that look like for sustainability. So while we identified current funds, part of the project is to continue to look at future funds and sustainability.
Tracy?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It was kind of more practical on the cross-system navigator work. I know it's early in the project, but my question was more, what triggers that? I know they're going to be in the schools for that front end part, but who is deciding or who's bringing in? I know we've done the rapid response team, and sometimes, and I have to say it worked great the couple times I called someone and said, please, somebody get into this county.
Completely.
No, it was wonderful, but the problem was nothing was triggering it until somebody, you know, got a hold of me and I got a hold of somebody else. And
that is a great point.
so I'm just curious as to what, like, if you have standards for what's going to trigger that response. So
Yes,
they get
we are thinking through that, especially with the school district that we're partnering with, right? Coming to the table, having those conversations in their counseling department with our navigator. What would that look like and how do they, because they're going to drive that to us. So yes, more to come on that. I think NDI will be a little bit easier, right? Every kid obviously will need to exit. And so there's that. And I'm not sure if you guys know this, but in July, the state hospitals, we opened additional 13 youth beds at NDI. And so we have the two state psychiatric hospitals that serve youth. You have Evansville, right? And then we have Indianapolis location, 13 new beds in Indianapolis. So that if you had kids on wait lists, they are probably off now, as that kind of opened up that flow to be able to get kids into the right beds at the right time.
It sounds like, Sarah, that this work has been largely agency work.
Yes.
Do you have any missing partners that you would like to have involved?
I do think, obviously there's been changes at all of our state agencies. And so we do have right now some gaps. And I think we're working towards, one, closing those for state agencies. Two, I had considered whether or not Brittany should be part of that and what does that look like, right? And then I think the next question everybody asks, like, should there be providers part of this and how do we integrate them, right? Confidentiality is always a challenge, right? When it comes to our rapid response and making sure we're not violating anybody's statutes that exist within that continuum, right? Because everybody has a little bit different. And so bringing providers to the table with that can get a little bit dicey and challenging. So we're trying to figure out, how do we engage others? I don't have a solution yet.
Sort of a follow-up on that, if I may. Talking about Brittany Kelly being part of that, is there anyone else from the judicial side of things or the youth justice system that might be helpful? I know a lot of based on what I'm seeing, it seemed like a lot of the kids are pre that system. But I just wonder, and I am not the expert on this, just wonder if we want to make sure that whatever system or process we put in place doesn't make that more complicated somehow.
Yeah, and I think a good example was the youth we staffed on Monday. because obviously I'm not an expert on the juvenile justice system. And so the youth was in detention, right? And went there on Sunday. It was Monday. We're like, how long will the youth be held? What's our time frame? Like, right? But nobody on the call really had that intimate knowledge of how that works. So I do think like we were missing some people's voices.
So thinking through some of that, I wonder if a conversation in the behavioral health work group here could brainstorm that gap. I'm also thinking about our dual status teams in those counties that have those dual status teams. This would seem to be a natural marriage between the high acuity needs staffing and the dual status staffing. Now, I think that's a minority of counties currently.
That's a good idea though. Yeah.
But that may be pilot worthy in those counties that already have functional dual status teams. I'm looking at Alan because they seem to be highly functional in many areas. So is that accurate?
We use dual status an awful lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a coordinator with those or is it just case manager and probation officer coordinator?
Typically case manager and probation officer, but at Allen County Juvenile Probation, we actually have a designated officer who attends all of those dual status. If there's a field officer, if there's an intake officer, they go along. DCS typically requires a supervisor as well as a family case manager. We have an appointed guardian ad litem and a facilitator. So that's the team that we usually put together.
Okay. I'll probably email you and maybe connect with your team so that I can learn more from them.
Absolutely. Happy to.
Sarah, what is your email address?
It is sarah.sailors@fssa.in.gov. Yeah.
Don't ask for her cell phone.
Yeah, it's the same. I feel like this is a win. So state government actually let me keep my same cell phone number that I had for DCS for 19 years and was able to bring over. So that is very helpful. Right? I don't know how it happened, but it happened and I was very thankful.
And Sarah, you said that you and Terry are presenting at the probation officers conference.
We
is that
are.
right? So
Yes.
will that be an invitation for counties to reach out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. September 4th? Is that right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's coming up.
Any other questions for Sarah? All right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. All right, we'll move into our work group updates, starting with grants. So will that be Doug today?
Yes.
All right.
Well, thank you, Judge Kenworthy. We held an organizational meeting yesterday, I believe. Seems like it was a long time ago, to discuss restructuring. And we have separated the grants work group from the review committee. This is largely to allow us to begin to look at a number of changes that I'll get to here in a minute. The review committee met to review the grants that were submitted in this last round. We've awarded $6.6 million. And those recommendations will go to the Institute's Board of Trustees at their September meeting. So given that we still have about $42 million in the fund, we're looking to make some further changes, not just to the funding formula, but also to how the Criminal Justice Institute administers these grants. So we're going to hit pause on releasing any further RFPs for the rest of this year. The work group is going to begin to look at the funding formula. And CJI, thanks to work that Sarah and her team have done, they have helped us review barriers to application, barriers to compliance. We met with their team this week to talk about contracting and ways in which we can streamline our processes And so we're going to pilot this with these youth dollars. As I have come to find out, we hold all of our funding streams to the highest federal scrutiny, while also managing to the lowest common denominator amongst our grantees. And so we have a lot of policies because somebody has messed up once. And then we hold everybody to them. So we are working to, we're going to pilot this with our youth grants, and then we'll begin to hopefully apply our lessons learned from the pilot across a number of other of our funding streams. And so our goal will be that we will release this funding opportunity and its new processes and everything all streamlined and shiny at the beginning of the year. And hopefully our goal is we'll have two funding releases within the calendar year 2026 that will exhaust the rest of the $42 million that remain. Questions?
No questions at all for grants today. Wow.
Ambitious.
It is very ambitious, and I think you'll have counties excited about hearing more streamlined grant processes, administrative processes. So very much appreciated there. All right, next up, Dr. Alsma and data.
Yeah, that's hard to follow up. 42 million ambitious going out the door. That's fantastic. Happy to represent the data work group. Chris and I co-chair that one. We have great support with Lisa Thompson, Court Technology, and some of our staff at IU as well. So you can look at the work group report. We've done a lot of work over the last 6 months doing a deep dive into data quality with over 20 counties that have given data to be processed by IU. So we've been working through that, looking at missingness, data inconsistencies. This is a real focus of YJOC, is to really understand where youth are across the system, from the earliest points to the deepest points within the criminal justice system. What do we know? We know at the deeper points, detention, DOC, data quality tends to be better. At the earlier end, that's where we get more of the missingness piece. So going into this, our team at IU didn't really know what that was going to look like on the diversion side of things. What do we know about diversion? It has exploded over the last several years, which is fantastic, keeping youth in the community away from the system. We also don't really know what counties have done for data around diversion. So we went into this pulling data, really understanding, but we knew we needed to do a deeper dive after looking at that data. So we sent out a survey to all these counties to really understand where data was with the different diversion programs that were out there. And we didn't really still have a good idea after pulling data after the survey. So we actually went out and did interviews with counties. So we did 18 interviews. So thank you everyone that volunteered your time to do that. It gave us a much better picture of data quality, and it's across the board. It's very broad. So what we're learning from this is that there are some best practices around data quality that we can then lift up, and working with Lisa Thompson, Court Technology, and Chris to really start to have some options for quantifying this data more systematically at a state level. So you can see some of that work that's going on within SRS, with Quest, with IOCS. So we're already looking at how to improve that going forward. So that diversion report is in process. The broader data quality report is in process as well. The next phase will be focusing on 5 counties that want to volunteer to improve data quality. So we really want to understand, how can we get data to a better place that we can understand at a state level where youth are. So some good progress, some heavy lifting. And you can see how data comes up with your work with DMHA and tracking youth. So it's super important. Chris, anything that I've missed so far?
No.
That's what I wanted. Affirmation. Keep it coming. Questions from the committee?
All right.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Alsma. I'm not sure if we have a report today from Shannon, who has joined us online today regarding screening and assessment. Shannon, anything you want to say today?
I don't have anything. We haven't met because we completed our jobs. And I think at our last meeting, I asked to be, I guess, for our group to be fired. But yeah, we don't have anything going on right now.
Okay. And we did, I guess, give permission. I won't say we fired them because they've done a fabulous job. So we did say that screening and assessment will disband going forward because they have completed their tasks at this point. So excellent work to Judge Dowling and Shannon and the whole screening and assessment team.
Well, thank you. And if I can be of assistance anywhere else, please let me know.
All right. Did you hear that? We have a volunteer. All right. Next up, behavioral health. Sarah, will you?
Okay, so since our last time we were together, we've actually had some membership changes. So magistrate, Citron out of Elkhart has joined our team. And then, Corey George, who was our probation, officer in Wayne County has, resigned, as he is no longer going to be a probation officer in Wayne County and moving to Tippecanoe County to do some community corrections, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So a little bit of change there. But we have a subgroup in our group. And so our subgroup, which is titled the Clinical Process Subgroup, they've been working on proposals for standardized definitions that we can outline for judges and help providers basically speak the same jargon, right? And make sure that we all understand what we're talking about when we say a diagnostic and evaluation, or, you know, these different things that you might order and ask for, make sure that we're all on the same page. So we've been working on that. So we just had a meeting this week, actually 2 days ago. And so we have, we're getting really close to having a final document for all of you to review. So I'm thinking, hopefully we'll have it at our next meeting for you. Our next subgroup meeting, or our next behavioral health meeting, is September 30th. So I think we're gonna try to have it finalized by our group then to be able to present here. And then after that work is done, we think that subgroup could really be fired also and kind of sunset. And so they'll just come back into the big group and we'll continue to do the good work. We are also working on a one-pager for telehealth best practices, trying to outline statutes and pulling together resources. Though that is in the early phases. So we're just starting that work to really gather all of the information to be able to understand what statute allows, what is paid for, right, in whether it's in the Medicaid world or private health insurance, and how you access all of this, so that maybe we can help distribute information so that you guys better understand how to use that system and when to use it. And then obviously our work with the grants, right? And how can we partner with them to better provide support to our rural counties so that they can access these funds. And then I have on my new list to work with the public library system in figuring out how to use that in conjunction with telehealth. I think that covers most of it. Any questions?
Behavioral health has a lot to do. So I appreciate now Magistrate Gowdy and Sarah taking the lead on that. So I think we've got a good team going on. And I just want to note that when you said Corey George, I saw Judge Graham just immediately start beaming up here, because that's a good get for Tippecanoe County. Well, maybe we can pull him aboard for certain things. All right, next up, diversion. Tracy?
Yeah, I co-chair diversion with Megan Horton, who thank you, Megan, for doing our report as usual. And we have not met since the last YJOC meeting, but we have been working. I believe we've gotten almost 80 information on almost 80 programs from 35 counties. So we're pretty much done gathering at this point for now, because we'll continue, once we get it all up on the directory and kind of the way we want it to look, we may go back to obviously trying to get all the information that's out there. But we do have that going on. Megan's been working with people at the court to get it into a format so it can go into the directory. We hope to have that completed by the end of this month. Our group meets again September 24th, or yeah, by the end of this or next month, we'll have it done so we can show it to our group, make any last minute changes, and then obviously we're going to present it to all of you for any input, but hopefully we'll have it done and a resource going at the end of the year. At that point, we don't know about our group. We think maybe we could give the work then to the court, some court teams, but we would still maybe meet once a year, twice a year, just to go over the overall look at the directory and maybe look at programming to see if there's programming we want to hold up as better or connect people with. So we're not exactly going away, but maybe kind of sunsetting the larger group.
Right. And so largely speaking, there's been an effort to combine efforts that are duplicating one another. So I think that makes sense, Tracy. I don't know if the logistics have entirely been identified yet, but
Once
yeah.
we get the directory done,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have a better idea of how it can be maintained and who's going to do what at that point.
Sure. Sure.
Any questions for me?
I'm curious, Tracy, the diversion directory indicates 78 programs over 35 counties. Is that largely JDAI counties, or is that a mixture, or do we know that?
I think it's a mixture. I think we have both.
Good.
Yeah.
But yes, there are, yes.
Great. And I've heard of a couple deliverables coming out for the next meeting, which will be October the 9th. So I will just generally say that for the sake of this group reviewing those deliverables, if we could get them out to the group a week to 10 days in advance of that meeting, I think that would be super helpful. So if we could get those sometime around the 1st of October, we could then get them out by email to the group, this group, for review. All right, next up, transitional services. Will that be Magistrate Foley or Terry today?
Rock, paper, scissors. Feel free to chime in. Transitional services has not met since the last meeting, although like diversion, we've been kind of busily at work. We continue to work on, I think we're on our 3rd or 4th draft now of our best practices guide. Joseph has been working diligently on that, and Terry and I have been chiming in. Obviously, we lost Tyler to his brand spanking new job out in the metro land of DC. So we wish him well, but we're all irritated at him. So Joseph has indicated that he thinks he's going to have this next draft done probably within this next week. We do have our best practices sub-work group. We've got a Zoom meeting set up with them. So hopefully we'll be able to make any recommended changes at that point. We had also planned on trying to get something together by the next meeting, which if everybody is, you may say, nope, next one after that. So, but yeah, we're still working on the best practices. Terry, was there anything you wanted to add?
That's it.
Questions regarding transitional services? All right. So at this point, I will open the floor for conversation around the table from each agency. If you have something you'd like to share about what's going on with your agency, if you have ideas for this committee going forward, I will open the floor for that discussion. So I'll start on this side this time. Leslie, is there anything you want to add? Mark? Judge Graham?
Hi, everybody. A couple of updates from Voices. We are set to open our family housing units. As you guys know, we have emergency shelter care for young men ages 14 to 17. We have Jake's Place, which is transitional housing for 20 to 24. And we are opening Cookie's Corner, which will open, oh my God, I hope in September, for families to stay for up to 2 years for us. And they are 9 two-bedroom apartments. So we are really excited about that. We also got contract with Eskenazi to study youth mental health on the far east side of Indianapolis. If you guys are not aware, our building sits in the health equity zone and it has a 16-year less life expectancy than other zip codes in Indianapolis. So mental health is a crucial part of that. And so we are working with them to figure out ways to improve that. And last plug, our registration for our golf outing just opened in October. It's October 5th. It's golf, art, and hip hop. It's super amazing. Please register for some. And my always plug, where our youth and community on the committee.
And where might people go to look for information on how to
Everything is on our website. Everything is on our website. So let me know if you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Kia. Nothing? No. Sarah? Judge King?
No.
No?
No. No.
I do, of course. So at the end of the month, we're going to be doing a training for a half day. So with funding from the Department of Mental Health and Addiction, it's going to be focused on youth trafficked within the juvenile justice system. We're excited about that. And this is definitely one of those where Judge Dowling in Delaware County, she has been the state champion to really emphasize screening, care, focusing on youth. She's ready to pass that baton on. So I think for anyone that has a passion in this area, particularly from a court magistrate judge level, we'd love to help you come alongside. It doesn't have to be just one person. It needs to be a team of people. So at this training, we have partners from DCS talking about screening. We have partners from the Indiana Trafficking Victims Assistance Program talking about programs. And we're excited to be at the table because with the expansion of CCBHCs, there's an evidence-based training program at IU, and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral treatment is a legitimate option for young people that have been trafficked. So for young people that have been, there are now over 60 providers across the state. There's an adjunctive treatment for young people where this could be a good option, particularly with intensive respite care, foster care for placement. It doesn't need to have that bed. What do we know about beds? They're so hard to find. So I think the more that we have intensive outpatient treatment options, the better for everyone. So this might be the next phase with DMHA is really thinking about how to expand that treatment. And if you want to know more about TFCBT, and if you like podcasts, go to This American Life, 10 sessions. It's an episode about what TFCBT looks like. And it's really transformative for young people. So it gives you an idea of what you could be referring people to. 10 sessions, This American Life. You can listen to it on your way back to Fort Wayne, to Lafayette. So yeah. Yep. This American Life is a podcast and it's called 10 Sessions. So it's actually from a TFCBT therapist at the University of Washington that we partnered with before. And it's a good picture of how you can make incredible changes in 10 sessions of treatment. Hence the title, 10 Sessions. Over. Now your turn.
No, over.
Nope. All right. I have two things to wrap up today. First is that at the Judges Conference, the annual judicial conference in September, Judge King, Magistrate Hubbard from Marion County, and I will be providing a session focused on the changing landscape of juvenile justice. And so I will be again plugging YJOC and the grant dollars that flow from YJOC. And I think we should be thinking about a piece of legislation that passed this year and the effect that might have on the need for dollars on the juvenile justice side, and that is 1605. So 1605 had many component parts, but 37 pages long, sweeping change to the child welfare code, CHINS in particular. And one of the biggest changes is that services to parents on the CHINS side will be time limited. So I wonder if the urgency for services under the Chin's case will then cause a greater gap on the juvenile justice side. Just wondering. The limitation to 1 year doesn't go into effect until next year, but I think there's that possibility that we will see service providers then looking at the more urgent matter and pulling away as we still have shortages from the juvenile justice side. So as we talk about grant funding and juvenile justice side funding, I think we should look at that and think through that between now and next year when that 1 year service array limitation kicks in for families. And there are some exceptions, of course. If services aren't available, that's not going to count against the parent. But I still think the urgency is going to be there on the Chin side. Judge King, anything you want to add regarding that session?
No. I would thank Mindy for going ahead and put together a proposed PowerPoint. You take it, so thank you for that. And I'm gonna, I think, primarily be addressing the new Supreme Court case, the EK case, that dealt with a high acuity juvenile in a very serious situation, determinations that were essentially made by the Department of Child Services that did not maybe go quite so well. I guess that was my review, and it puts the court and gives trial courts a lot of information to avoid going forward in situations such as the Chin 6, which is perhaps what this more appropriately should have been, as opposed to the Chin's 1. There's historically been some reluctance, I think, at least from my perspective, in filing of a Chin 6 like ECS, and I think it kind of clarifies maybe some situations when that would be appropriate. So we'll be talking about that as well.
Finally, I just want to let you know that I came back yesterday from 5 days at a National Leadership Development Academy representing the judiciary. So I was the lone member of the judicial branch. There were 7 executive level folks from across the United States and 40 legislators. So I felt like the luckiest fly on a wall to learn how legislators think. That was a bonus. But I came away with 2 things, thinking about this group and this meeting happening this morning. Two things among others. One is that we in Indiana have an unprecedented level of collaboration among the branches and among agencies. Listening to others talk about the state of affairs in their own states was remarkable to me. So I've come home feeling very grateful for what we have going on here. I mean, we were talking about 3-branch collaborations and trying to brainstorm and identify programs that we could highlight for other states to learn from. And at the conference, among those 48 people, we could identify 2 programs, one in Kansas and one in Indiana. That was really sort of discouraging to hear that across the nation, either there aren't collaborations going on or people are not aware of the collaborations going on. So I just wanted to come back and say to this group, excellent work coming together, communicating, collaborating for the best interests of our youth. The other thing that stuck with me was one of our speakers. So a man named Hassan Davis, I see Nancy's heard him speak. He's been at a judicial conference several years ago. But he was essentially that youth who was dyslexic in school, the goofball who was always getting in trouble, sort of the throwaway kid throughout his schooling years in the juvenile justice system, delinquent, not expected to amount to anything. So over time, he did have some champions and became the head of the juvenile justice, essentially branch in Kentucky. And he was telling his story to our group, and there was a line that just jumped out at me. We, the people in the room, have the opportunity and the power to hold the line between harm and hope. So think about that. This group is poised in that position with the ability to hold the line between harm for our youth and hope for our youth. That's incredible. So with those two events at that conference, I came home just incredibly thankful for this group and thankful to have the honor of serving in this group as well. So with that, I will ask if there's any other business for the group. Then we will be adjourned early. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. What?